Welcome to 100 Yards of Football. I'm your host, Vincent Turner. Today we got a special edition and special guest joining us from the television production side of our show. We talk about football, but now we're going to go a different direction. If you like the video today, please come in and share it. We'll surely appreciate here 100 Yards Football. Thank you to my family, my team, Mr. Logan Landers, who is producing the show today, to Mr. Jeremiah Long, to Mr. Ronnie Keebler, to Mr. Bobby Butler, and to Mr. Mark Denham, a.k.a. Mark Bass, and also to a special thanks to Jim Maryland, coming out of Ruston, Louisiana. Thank you. So today, we're going to talk a little bit about royalty in the television business and radio business. I got a gentleman that's been doing it for 35 years in the windy city of Chicago, Illinois. He's royalty, man, out of the state of Mississippi. The same hometown as my mother and father, and I always say it's something in the water in Mississippi. He's a gentleman that's had a show, Here We Are, for 12 consecutive years in the Chicago area. He's done some work with WVON 1690 out of Chicago. And today, he's going to tell us about his journey into his success. I'm bringing him to the stage here live on 100 Yards Football, Mr. Henry B. Cheatham. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing very well, Vincent. I better keep my mouth closed after you just said everything you said about me.
Hey, I'm just giving my flowers, looking at your royalty, your resume. Hey, man, you one of the guys to look up to because you made this job in this business for the younger African Americans to follow your path. But not about me. Let's talk about your journey out of the state of Mississippi. And how did your journey end up to Chicago, Illinois, when you got one of the best shows right now? Here We Are, and then your success at WVON 1690. Let's start from your younger years up to how you got here today.
All right. Well, thank you very much once again for having me, inviting me on the show, and thank Mr. Maryland for doing what he does. He knows what he's going to do, and you can't say no to him, you know?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, I was born and raised in a little town called Bentonio, Mississippi. That's in Yazoo County.
Yes, sir.
That's right at what we will call the foothill. The foothills going up into the Delta. I'm just short of the Delta, so I'm almost in the central part of the state all of my life.
Yes, sir.
And I moved to Jackson when I was about 6 months old. That's what they tell me. The only thing I know is Jackson. But I go to my home birthplace, and every time I go home, I go there, and I have to spend time there. I go out,
yes, sir.
Because that's where a lot of my relatives are buried, and it's a big history of us out there. So I go there, So I was raised in Jackson, Mississippi. I went to Salmon Brinkley Junior High School, and I graduated from Salmon Brinkley Senior High School, which was a new school that was built and opened in 1960. It lasted about 12 years.
Yes, sir.
They decided to close us down when they went through what they call the integration, I guess. They closed our school down, even though it was an excellent school, very wonderful school. We had some excellent teachers and all that stuff. I played football there, and I did a little singing, and I was in a group and all that stuff. So I participated in some athletics and a little acting. And I also, before I left Jackson, after I got out of high school, I went to Kansas City for about 6 months, Kansas City, Missouri. And I spent a lot of time, there. I spent about 6 months there, came back home, got involved in civil rights and all of that stuff. So, and once I got involved with that, I left and went into the Army in 1963.
Yes, sir.
And I was in the Army from 63 to 65. Of course, it's a 6-year obligation. So I was in for, reserves and all for 6 years. That's what the requirement is for the military once you're in there. Got an honorable discharge. I'm sorry. Go on.
And that's where you kind of really got involved in the facet of TV production and radio early on because of your occupation in the Army, correct?
Well, really what happened is I always liked radio. I always enjoyed it. I liked, the tempo of radio. And I never will forget, I went to the radio station down at WOKJ in Jackson.
Yes,
it was
sir.
On a Christmas. We had the early morning, the rising We had gone to the Masonic Temple. So I went there. And so when I left Masonic Temple, I went down to the station because it's not that far from Jackson State. It's not that far from the Masonic Temple, you know. So I went there and I was tapping on. I was looking, you know, just looking at the guy, just looking. His name was Joby Martin.
Yes, sir.
And Joby was very, very popular. And I was just sitting there. I was just looking at him, you know, in the studio. And so finally,
One of the legends in Jackson in
Ye-
Mississippi radio history.
yes, he was. You're absolutely right. He, you know, also he was a Tiger. You know, Jackson State. He took it to hell. He did. He was a good. He was one of the first guys to have a television show there too, as well. You know.
Yes, sir.
And he was there. So I tapped on the window. Pap, pap, pap. You know,
Yes, sir.
and, you know, and he came out. He said, "No, you can't be doing that." You know. But that was one of my things. I always liked it. You know. And I used to do some yard work for a guy who worked for a radio company that was at that time, it's no longer exists today, Mutual Broadcasting. I used to do his yard. I used to cut grass and stuff. So I did his yard. And he was into radio, little short guy. Can't think of his name right now. You know, so I was always fascinated by radio. I always liked it, you know. So when I went in, when I volunteered for the draft and went into the military, I became a communications guy. They call it a command.
Yes, sir.
And that is, I was a field communication crewman, lineman, and all that. I mean, we climbed the telephone post, put up wire and stuff. But in Germany, we didn't have to do that because we couldn't do it because it was against protocol. So all we did in the lines we did there were on the ground, you know. And that's what my MOS showed me into radio communication. So that's what I did, you know, for the time that I was in there. And when I got out of the military, as I said, I always enjoyed it. My father was a guy who he liked radio, you know, because my father was very, very keen on world affairs. You know, he was in the Navy. My father was. He was in World War II. I think that's what they call it. he was he was over in the Pacifics. You know, I wanted to go into the Navy, but they told me that my score wasn't high enough. So when the Army said, "Yeah, come on in," then he come telling me, "Okay, come on over. You can go into the Navy." I said, "But you told me my score wasn't high enough," you know. So
Yes,
I said,
sir.
"No," I said, "I'm going into the Army in about a week," you know. So as I got out of the military, I went back home looking for some employment, couldn't find any. You know, I had a great time in the military. I enjoyed it. I was with a transportation outfit. The guy used to kid me because I didn't have a truck or nothing. Yeah, I had no vehicle, but I always had a chauffeur. So when I
Yes,
got
sir.
ready to do somewhere, you know, go somewhere, someone would have to take me, you know.
Yes,
So
sir.
which was good. Hey, I had no problem with it. I said, I need to go down to Munich. They would take me down to Munich for whatever, you know, reason, you know. But and I got out of the military. I went back home. I couldn't find employment. So my brother and a friend of ours, I said, well, I tell you what. I said, I just got out. I still got some money in my pocket.
Yes,
I
sir.
said, so we'll go to Chicago, man. So the plan was to come to Chicago, invest in some property, and then after about 5 or 10 years, we'd come back home. That was the plan. But it didn't happen that way. I got to Chicago on a Saturday night, daylight saving time. My oldest brother was here, a lot of friends, and he picked me up at the train station. And Wednesday, I had 2 or 3 jobs.
Yes, sir.
And I started working at Ford Motor Company. And
Amen.
I worked there until I worked there until I got out of college. And when I got out of college, I started working I went to Columbia College here in Chicago. That's where I got my bachelor's from.
Yes, sir.
And my master's from the University of Illinois here in Chicago.
Yes,
So
sir.
I started working down in Indianapolis for about a year, roughly a year, not quite a year, but close to a year at Indianapolis. That was in 1973. And I don't know if you know Jane Pauley. She used to be with the Today Show and all that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah. So she's a very nice lady too, by the way. Very nice lady. So she came into Chicago for a while, and the rest is history, as they say. She went to New York and did the Today Show, which I thought she and Brian Gumble are the last 2 great hosts of that program. You know,
Yes, sir.
I mean, that was an excellent show. I used to love that show. That's what I wanted to do. I said, man, if I can make it to that show, yeah. But it wasn't to be. But I ended up my career with NBC. you know,
During
that's
that
where
time, during that time, what was it like to be on a show like that?
I working. Well, I was in news. That's what I did. I was doing production, television production down in Indianapolis. And new, it was
As
news.
today?
And at that time, it was right before the minicam came out. Right before three quarter. I think, or three-quarter tape came out before the three-quarter tape. It
Mhm.
was. I think they were shooting when the minicams came out. CBS was the first one to really jump into that. You would shoot on film and
Mhm.
you would bring it back to the studio and you would process it and have it ready for the 5 o'clock news. You didn't have as much news as you have now, 24 hours pretty much. But what we did, somebody would go out and shoot it, come back and process it, and you put the story up. That's the way it was done. So I thought it was good. You had to be good. There's a lot of guys who got into television out of film because it was a different union. A lot of them were shooting, and when minicam came out and television needed minicam, guys transfer over that. Some guys weren't, but many of them did come out of the film unit. They were already used to shooting, so they knew how to shoot, but it was just getting used to the tape was a different process. You don't have to do anything.
Yes, sir.
You shoot it, take it back to somebody it is.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Now, Mr. Cheatham, our producer, Mr. Logan Landers, likes your work so much. He like to ask you a question because he's kind of right now involved with that. So, Logan, your
Yes,
question
sir.
for Mr. Cheatham today.
Yes, sir. So, Mr. Cheatham, I currently do work in radio here in Gainesville, Georgia, and of course, I got to pick your brain a little bit since you have such vast experience working in radio and television. So, tell myself, tell the viewers, the fans, what was one of the biggest skills that you learned during your time doing radio and also TV production?
Oh well. Well, in television production, I started out as a floor director,
Right.
cameraman, etc., and I ended up producing some shows. And when I left NBC, General Electric NBC here, Telemundo, it was NBC Telemundo when I left it. I was in transmission. I don't know if you know what transmission is.
Yes,
That's where
sir.
we would bring all of the signals and all that stuff in, minicams and all of that. It was very exciting, because sometimes back in that day, it's not as easy. It was not as easy then as it
Right.
is now. Today, you just punch up a telephone and you're going about your business. We had to meet up with the satellites, or the microwave dishes, all of
Yep.
that stuff
Yep.
we had. And in Chicago, it's a little different than being in a smaller town. In Chicago, we got some big old canyons out here, buildings, you got to try to get the guys would be out there in the field and they say, hey, they show me a shot. They say, this is what we're looking at, man. And we knew we had to figure out some kind of way to get that shot in.
Right.
Trees and all that, will affect, coming through, so all of that stuff had to be accounted for. So that was a tough period, to try to do stuff like that, but we did it, and you'd be surprised, man, how smart some guys turn out to be. They downtown, Hancock, our transmitters and things was at the Hancock and Sears. So you're downtown and you're looking at City Hall. You got a shot from City Hall or the Thompson Center. Now they're down there and they're not as tall, as
Right.
some of the newer buildings, right? So you got to figure out how to get that signal to the microwave, how to kick it. And what they would end up doing is bouncing it, as they would say. I'm gonna bounce it off that building over there, and it comes back to us. So that was some of the complicated things you had to do. But I did a lot of sports, so I enjoyed doing sports. We covered everything in Chicago here. The Bulls, Blackhawks, another team that you won't know nothing about, the World Hockey Association.
Mhm.
I think it's only one team that came out of that, and that is
The Edmonton Oilers, right? It was hardly
No. I think the team. I don't. It was New Jersey. I think they.
okay.
I think New Jersey Devils came out of that. But
Okay.
you got a chance to see a lot of the old guys. The real hockey guys back in that day. So it was stuff like that. We did a lot of that stuff. Equipment obviously is smaller today.
Yeah.
We had, you talk about some big old cameras and stuff, man. And it was two people on, mostly men. Every now and then there would be a woman, but it was mostly men. Two men would get together and, one carrying the box, as we call it. That's the recorder.
Mm-hmm.
And one is shooting, using the camera, So I don't know if did I answer your question. Did I get out base?
That's sure you did. Like you said, thank you very much for that. It is a
You got you got one more question for him, Logan?
Yeah, let's see, whatever.
Yeah, one more.
Like I said, and like I said, that's just tremendous. And like I said, you've seen through the years of you working behind the scenes, like you said, doing production for television, just how much the equipment, like you mentioned, has changed. You had the giant, cameras and stuff you had to lug around, and just even when you, when you're going into the early 2000s, when you your career winded down, how that just went even smaller and smaller. Was that a big challenge for you, just kind of getting used to all that new equipment throughout the years, or did you kind of take to it pretty easy?
Well, just at the time I was not NBC. We were Channel 44, Harris Scope. Telemundo had came in. We had bought that and all that. It was Telemundo at the time, right? Because what happened, we used to do subscription television. Channel 44 did.
Okay.
And so by it being subscription television, we would do programs at a certain time, and at night we would go into what we call on TV. So you had to pay for that service. And we were the one in Chicago, because Chicago didn't have cable at the time. So we were the one who were doing that. And we were also the first one to do digital Avids. We were the first one to do digital editing. Everybody in town, they say, "Hey man, don't the chief engineer know that that's a computer and that thing, might crash and all that stuff." Hey, he went straight on with it, man. And I tell guys, I never used the app. Man, say, what the hell you think you editing? I said, you're absolutely right. So I've done some editing too, so all of that stuff. But yeah, it was a transition. Right. There's no question about it. The equipment obviously is so much smaller today. When I look at my telephone and I see a camera that was costing $50,000 to $100,000, right?
Yep.
And I look at my telephone camera, I said, man, this is a hell of and it makes a hell of a picture. We got these things and you got to do something. Now everybody can shoot.
Yes, sir.
Everyone can shoot. And so it was a transition from that point, but it was not a big shock because, hey, we did it. We had to do it. You go right into it because you had been editing anyway. You knew how to edit,
right.
Videotapes and all that stuff. And you just transitioned to that. Speaking of 44, just thought about this. I did when we went into on TV, we would broadcast until I think about 7 o'clock. I think we went into. Maybe not even that long. It may have been. We may have came in earlier than that. Now that I think about it, it's been a little while. And I was producing a show at that time called Dimensions, and I remember when we changed that format. I did the last English language program that we had. Because we went Spanish. So my show, the show that I was producing, was the only English show that was on there. And then we would get into the Spanish broadcasting. When I think about that, yeah. So when I look at our generation of television folks, let me tell you what I look at. And I tell guys, that's, we're the second generation of television broadcasters. Yes, and the reason I say that is because when we first got into television, it was VHF. Solo, nothing else, solely VHF. And when President Eisenhower made it, people were moving into UHF, he made it that every television had to be made at a certain point, had to be made with UHF and VHF. And that was a transition period, man. And it's just like going from where we were to where we are today with digital. What digital services that we got all over the place now. Look at, you got 1 million channels now, right? From one station,
Right.
So that I said, yeah, and I talked to the guy. I said, yeah, I said, we really were, man. I said, because when you came out of television in the early 30s, man, what those guys were doing back there, and where we are, hey, we made the change. We were here for the change. Now you guys, y'all know nothing about VH and UHF, but you guys are here with this thing here. I don't know where y'all going to end up with it, but you guys are going to push it to somewhere else.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Time will tell. Thank you very much for answering my question, Mr. Turner. Back to you, sir.
Thank you very much for the question. Yes.
Okay, Mr. Cheatham, let's talk about your time at WVON 1690 when it seemed like your career and your game went to another level.
Okay, what happened is as I was working in television, so Mr. Perry Spann was one of the station owners. He was putting on a concert at Soldier Field.
Yes, sir.
And so I told her, and I talked to some of my, fellow crew members, and I said, hey, man, I said, look, because at that time you had Don Kirshner. There was a lot of concerts were being taped, and, you put them on television, right? So I told my man, I said, look, I said, I'm going to go over and talk to this guy and see if we can do this, that, and other with this show. He said, yeah, man. Because we did a lot of it, they would come through because there was a place called the Amphitheater here in Chicago, no longer exists. There's a lot of venues like that. So, we would go down and we would shoot, different, artists that would come in, And so I said, yeah, man, let's do it. So I went to him and I was talking to him about doing it. I said, yeah. I said, well, it's going to cost you a few dollars. Well, he didn't want to spend the money. He wanted to get it done for $10. I said, no, it's going to cost you $1,000.
Yes, sir.
So it's just one thing to know. So anyway, we developed a relationship. And he would call me as I would be getting, what time you off today? And I said, well, I'm getting off today at 2 or 1 or whatever time it is. And we'll stop by the station. So I would stop by the radio station. And he would ask me to help him out, producing his program or something at night. And so they moved from where they were on Kedzie over to 87th Street. They're now downtown at 800 Water, I think the River City is the name of the building. The 800 down South Loop down in Chicago here. So what happened is he was doing the show because he was the guy, the first one to sign on WVON. April 1st, happy anniversary, just passed by 60 years on the 1st of April. He's passed now, Mr. Spann has. He just passed last year he passed. But he asked me, I was, sitting there. So he would ask me to come by. So he got sick. And when he got sick, I told his son, who was also there with me at the time, I said, look, I said, I think what I'm going to do is we'll continue to do the show, man. I say, this is it. This is the bedrock of WVON. It's blues, because VON broke a whole lot of shows. Music was broken at WVON, by him and the other guys there. B.B. King was a good friend of his, because he was out of Itabena, Mississippi. And so when he got ill, because I would go on from time to time when he was there, would say a few words, as producers will do from time to time. It was not my intentions to go and do the show. Because my intention was to do something else, because I had started doing a junior college thing. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And kind of enjoyed teaching a little bit, right? So when he got sick, he was not able to continue the show, so I did it. And I took over the program named the Classic Blues and R&B. It's on every Saturday night from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. right now.
Yes, sir.
when I last week, it was on from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. And that's the show that I do. And I enjoy it because it's American music. That's how I label the show as, the music of our country. It's there's some young guys out here still doing blues. There's some of the older guys are here, guys in their maybe 60s or something like that, buddy guys here in Chicago. So, Bobby Rush and guys like that are still in and out of Chicago. But it's a different day, but the music is good. I just got a cut from I know of Watch 103rd Street Rhythm Band, Charles Wright.
Yes, sir.
I just got a cut from him yesterday. It's a good cut. These guys are still making music. Chris Jasper. These guys are still making music, and I'm getting the music. So I play the music. But yeah, that's how I got into it. I got into doing the program. Is that when he became ill, and I wanted to make sure that the show continued to go, because the station is basically a talk show. I mean, yeah, talk station. But at midnight every night, there's music, and I'm on Saturday night and Sunday. There's music. I think for 2 or 3 hours, But for the most part, it is a talk station, you know. But I think we're doing pretty good. We're still there. We do what we can to keep it live, keep the music going, because it's great music. Without this music, America has no culture musically. This is music that was created here, right here in our country. We did it. It didn't come from, Beethoven and them. They're from Europe.
Yes, sir.
So they're not American. When you talk about American culture, American music, you got to talk about blues, spirituals, gospel or whatever you call it, country and western, all of that stuff you got to talk about, and it's right here.
And then finally, the genius of your program, Here We Are. Tell us about the genius behind that.
Okay, well, that program came about. I was doing something. I don't know what the hell I was doing. As people are always talking that noise, this, that, and other. And I thought about it. I said, you can push a man or you can push a woman or whatever. And if that man is still standing, or that woman is still standing, you say, okay, here I am. And so I just took it and made it, here we are, no matter what, the burdens or what have you, we're still standing, and
Yes,
we as a country still stand, So that's where that came from. That's the meaning of the title. But we did that show for about 12 years straight. It was an hour show. It was on twice a month. And CAN TV on cable access. We got a great access channel here in Chicago, and we've had some very interesting guests on. I mean, we've covered a lot of different topics. My daughter was a host, and when she wants to now she can. My son, a young man by the name of Johnny Cole Muhammad. I've had many young people on there. They would come in because we would do commentaries, just different things. If they had a topic they want to cover, I said, okay, let's do it, and we would do it. But that's how Here We Are came about. And if you go to my channel at Henry CB 6175, I think that'll get you to everything.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we have about 600. I don't know. I think about 600 and some videos up there. And we try to post programs, and we try to have we try to get the different kind of view from it, because I'm not interested in propaganda.
Yes, sir.
I'm not interested in making the audience follow my belief. It's up to the audience. You lay it out there and let people learn for themselves. Let them decide for themselves, Not for me to tell you that you should like the Atlanta Falcons. Yeah,
Yes,
I think they stink, so therefore, that's what what I'm saying. That's the way you look at it. But
Yes,
if I'm
sir.
telling you, wait a minute, the Falcons only won one game this year. What if they do last year? None. That kind of. So what? I'm just messing. I see your Atlanta jacket on there. That's why I came up with the Falcons.
No problem there.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah. But that's the way that goes, So that's what a program should be about. Not all this crap we got going today. This is not really news to me,
Yes, sir. Your final, it's been, like I said, a tremendous honor to have you on today. And what I like to ask you, my final question of the day is,
you getting ready to kick me out? Dog, man, go on. Go on.
But the final question is, looking at where radio and TV is today, where do you see it going in the future, based on the time that you've been in the profession for a long time?
Well, it's some things I hear I don't like. Like they said, the new cars with the electric cars, you can't. The manufacturers don't want to put, the necessary isolation there to keep it from. So they're not putting them in the newer cars. They're already taking the CDs out, and that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure, but it looked like everything, we've come a long ways. When I came along, the portable transistor is what has allowed us to get to this point.
Yes, sir.
Because when you put everything on that wafer board, you start putting compact. That made it very possible to do a lot of things. Put a lot of information there. But where I don't like some of it because I love sports, right?
Yes, sir.
And I like listening to radio sport, baseball and football on radio, right?
Yes, sir.
But these bastards want to charge me for
Yes, sir. That's true.
They want to charge because there were some good guys who you sit and you said, this guy made you think that you see a great team. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
But I think with that being the future of it, everything is screaming now. Streaming here, streaming there on your watch. Your telephone and all that stuff. And sure, you need money, but I think they nickel and diming us to death. And I think they really they don't care, I don't think, in many ways. It's like music.
Yes,
You used to go to the store and buy a CD, a record or what have you. And now you have to, you got to stream it, and which hurts the performers. And I think that they need to be able to make a living.
Yes, sir.
So, when you start giving me a nickel for a record, wait a minute, that should cost me $15 to make one.
Yes, sir.
So it's that kind of thing. So I can't, I'm not sure. I hope to be here another 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. That's what I hope to be. So
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure exactly where it's going to go, Vincent, but I think with iHeart on and, controlling everything, different services like that, Audacity and all those things, you never know which way they're going to go with things, because they're trying to consolidate everything rather than having, as I said, we had a whole bunch of radio networks, man, in the past, and they became consolidated to where you had the three, NBC, ABC, and CBS, And then all of a sudden, then you had the cables that come, and it's the same thing with radio. It's like your show you're doing here. This show here, hey, it's somebody's picking it up somewhere,
Yes,
and
sir.
this is where we are. We have taken things and split it up, and don't ask me if it's good or bad, but I think it's an opportunity for you guys, young guys. If we had this equipment when we came along, oh man.
Yes, sir.
I mean, y'all could do a 10 commandment, man, with just your telephone. You got 2 or 3 telephones, and you go here, you go there, and y'all take it, bring it back, and edit the stuff together. Hey, you got a great program,
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know what the future would bring, but hopefully it'll be good.
Well, Mr. Cheatham, it's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. We love to have you come back down the road, talk a little bit more about what's going on in the TV world, about Apple, about Amazon, different networks that's coming up on a daily basis, it seems like. But hey, man, we'd like to say thank you so much for your time. Hey, it's always a royalty to talk to the legends that's in this business. And I want to say thank you here on 100 Yards of Football. Thank you for coming on the show today.
I want to thank you very much for having me, Vincent, and your producer there, Landon. I want to thank both of you guys for having me, and I enjoyed it. And I hope I shed some light.
Yes, sir. Your knowledge was flawless. If you like the video, please comment and share. We surely appreciate here at 100 Yards of Football. Thank you to my team, Mr. Logan Landers, for making it happen today. My producer, to Mr. Jeremiah Long. Thank you to Mr. Bobby Butler. Thank you to Mr. Ronnie Keebler. Thank you to Mr. Mark Denham, a.k.a. Mark Bass. And, of course, thank you to Mr. Jim Maryland. Couldn't be more blessed. And, again, to our guest, the man out of the Windy City, Mr. Henry B. Cheatham. Thank you today, sir, and God bless. Thank you here on 100 Yards Football. Y'all be blessed today.